streets to the screen, from the headlines to the beat. This is Daily Buzz.
Welcome to Daily Buzz News. Our lead story today.
Corruption exposed. Allegations are emerging that President Cyril Ramaphosa handpicked SIU boss advocate Andy Motibi to protect his nephew, Hungwani Momia. South Africa's political landscape has shifted in a direction that has many observers questioning the integrity of the highest office in the land. At the center of this unfolding controversy is a highly disputed decision by President Cyril Ramaphosa to appoint advocate Andy Motibi as the new National Director of Public Prosecutions, or NDPP. The appointment, set to take effect on the 1st of February 2026, has raised serious concerns that it may be a calculated strategic move designed to shield powerful political figures from prosecution. Political analysts argue that the appointment is specifically aimed at protecting the president's nephew, Hungwani Momia, who has been identified as a central figure in the massive looting scandal at Tembisa Hospital. According to the narrative circulating in political circles, the president has allegedly handpicked a loyalist to occupy the most critical prosecutorial position in the country, just as his nephew faces the possibility of imprisonment. Analysts have voiced strong concerns that this is a political appointment with a singular objective: to ensure that Momia and potentially President Ramaphosa himself remain untouchable by the justice system. The timing of the appointment has also raised eyebrows, as it comes amid the retirement of the current NDPP advocate Shamila Batohi, creating a vacancy the president was reportedly eager to fill.
NDPP, which conducted an open and transparent selection process. The panel concluded its process and submitted its report to the president on the 12th of December 2025. In the report, the panel advised the president that none of the interviewed candidates were suitable for the role of NDPP. Accordingly, President Ramaphosa has, in terms of Section 1791A of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, read with Section 10 of the NPA Act, decided to appoint Advocate Andy Motibi, with effect from the 1st of February 2026, as the National Director of Public Prosecutions. With the appointment of Advocate Motibi as the NDPP, leaving a vacancy at the Special Investigating Unit, the President has decided to appoint Mr. Leonard Lekgetho as the acting head of the Special Investigating Unit, with effect from the 1st of February 2026. This is in line with Section 3(1)(b) of the Special Investigating Units and Special Tribunals Act 74 of 1996.
However, the method by which Motibi was selected has raised serious concerns. Critics say standard transparency protocols were bypassed, leading to accusations that the democratic process is being manipulated for personal or political gain. Unlike previous appointments, which followed a rigorous and transparent public vetting process, Motibi was appointed without undergoing public interviews. These interviews had been conducted late last year by an independent advisory panel. The panel, led by Justice Minister Mameloko Kabeye, interviewed 6 shortlisted candidates in December 2025. Those interviews were widely seen as part of a credible and structured selection process. In a surprising turn of events, the president later claimed that the advisory panel informed him that none of the 6 candidates were suitable for the position. This explanation has fueled further suspicion and intensified criticism from legal experts and political analysts.
What were some of the other reasons given as to the unsuitability of those candidates who had been interviewed? We know that that report was given to the president on the 12th of December last year.
Compliments of the citizen demand to you and to your viewers. Well, I can't get into the details except to say the president appreciated the thoroughness of the exercise carried by the advisory panel for the selection of the NDPP. And in response to their report and their advice, the president had to then look outside of that process, so to speak, for the most appropriate candidate that will lead the NPA.
Is the president going to reveal, Vincent, some of his, the rationale behind this decision insofar as the recommendations from the advisory panel? I mean, I think it's something, because of the importance of that office and the role, the public needs to know why the 6 interviewed didn't meet the standard.
Well, I think one has to be mindful and respectful to the individuals, number one. And so that information will need to factor that and may not be available for those reasons, but enough for the president to consider them as provided by the advisory panel. I think the issue here should be, is Advocate Motibi the most appropriate person? The answer is yes. He has the prerequisite experience in the security cluster or criminal justice cluster. He has all the right skills and qualifications to undertake such a task. And I think that's where we need to focus on, that the president has managed to find the most suitable candidate.
Consequently, President Ramaphosa exercised his constitutional powers to bypass the advisory panel's recommendations and appoint Motibi directly. This unilateral decision has intensified speculation that the president required a specific individual in that position, someone with detailed knowledge of sensitive cases threatening the first family. To fully understand the gravity of this appointment, one must examine the history between Motibi and the president's nephew. During his tenure as head of the Special Investigating Unit, or SIU, Motibi played a central role in uncovering widespread corruption at Tembisa Hospital. It was Motibi's unit that identified Hungwani Momia as the alleged mastermind behind one of 3 major syndicates responsible for siphoning more than 2 billion rand from the hospital.
A report on the 29th of September, and in that preliminary report, there were certain actions that were already completed. For example, we had already completed the finding that there are syndicates, 3 main ones. The main one led by Mr. Hungwani Maumela, and that is the unknown tycoon that the media indicates at today's rate. Our rate today was at Mr. Hungwani Maumela's house. So he's the one who's leading one of the syndicates, and under his syndicate is that of Mr. Ket Matlala. So that syndicate, as at the time of the announcement on Monday, we had found that they had executed purchases worth about 816 million plus. So that's the part that we are after for this syndicate led by Maumela. As at the time when we announced last Monday, we had already worked with the asset forfeiture unit to do preservation of certain assets, but we continued with the investigation to search for more assets, and we approached the special tribunal. The special tribunal gave an order to preserve other assets, and on the 29th, on the day we were announcing, we got an order to preserve about 500 million. But on the 7th of October, special tribunal varied that order, and we were given the order to preserve about 900 million worth of assets. Today's rate was part of executing on the order to ensure that we take the assets, those vehicles, and in the order, which I believe has been sent to your producers, we will send out a comprehensive communication tomorrow. But in the order, there's houses, there's cars, there's vehicles, including the house that you are seeing where we were raiding. We would like to make sure that all of those assets are preserved so that when ultimately we do the recoveries, we have to now sell all those assets and take the money back to the department.
The investigation uncovered a complex web of corruption involving fraudulent tenders, drastically inflated prices, and payments made for deliveries that never took place. The syndicates allegedly used shelf companies and non-compliant bidders to siphon off funds that were desperately needed for public health care services. The origins of this investigation are deeply tragic. The probe into the Tembisa Hospital scandal was only launched after a courageous whistleblower came forward. Babita Deokaran, who served as a senior financial accounting officer at the Gauteng Department of Health, flagged the suspicious transactions and irregular payments. Her commitment to exposing the truth came at a devastating cost. Babita Deokaran was assassinated in August 2021, a grim reminder of the extreme risks faced by those who challenge high-level corruption. It was against this violent and high-stakes backdrop that the alleged looting linked to Hungwani Momia took place. And it is this very case that Motibi will now hold significant influence over, as the newly appointed head of the National Prosecuting Authority. Political analyst Professor Andre Duvenhage has expressed deep skepticism about Motibi's ability to act impartially against Momia, now that he has been elevated by the president. Duvenhage argues that it would be extremely difficult for Motibi to take decisive action against Momia and other senior politicians within the African National Congress, including President Ramaphosa himself. The professor noted that several of these senior figures have been implicated in the Zondo Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, as well as individuals currently under scrutiny by the Mpati Commission. Duvenhage warned that Momia's position is deeply intertwined with powerful political interests. He suggested that within a dysfunctional system, officials often fail to carry out their duties properly, resulting in automatic delays to legal processes. Duvenhage described this tactic as a form of manipulation that undermines the Constitution of the Republic. The view that this appointment serves as a shield for corrupt individuals is shared by other observers. Another political analyst, Zakile Ndlovu, emphasized that the spotlight is now firmly on Motibi to fast-track the prosecution against Momia. Ndlovu argued that if Motibi is seen to be delaying action, it will be interpreted as protection of the president's nephew, allegedly on direct instruction from President Ramaphosa. He stressed that pressure now rests on both the president and Motibi to ensure the case moves forward swiftly, in order to avoid the perception that certain individuals are above the law. The details uncovered by the Special Investigating Unit regarding Momia are staggering. Investigators allege that he used a network of 41 different companies to siphon off more than 820 million rand from Tembisa Hospital alone. The scale of the operation was so extensive that the SIU raided his Johannesburg home in an effort to seize assets linked to the alleged corruption. That raid reportedly exposed a lifestyle of extreme luxury funded by public money. Among the items seized were 3 Lamborghini vehicles, designer furniture, and expensive artworks. The total value of assets preserved during the operation exceeded 133 million rand, while assets targeted overall were valued at approximately 900 million rand. While much of the focus remains on Momia, President Ramaphosa himself is not free from legal controversy, adding another layer of complexity to Motibi's appointment. In 2024, the National Prosecuting Authority declined to prosecute the president and the head of the Presidential Protection Service in connection with the Phala Phala farm scandal. That scandal originated from a burglary at the president's private farm in 2020, during which an estimated $4 million, roughly 60 million rand, was allegedly stolen from a couch where the money had been hidden. Instead of reporting the crime to the South African Police Service, the matter was reportedly handled through a private investigation. It is alleged that state security resources were used to recover the funds covertly. Another political analyst, Professor Nigel Fakir, argued that the president's lack of transparency raises serious concerns about Motibi's appointment. He stated that the move appears politically motivated and described it as a blow to public trust. Fakir emphasized that presidential powers are meant to serve national interests, not personal or political ones. In his view, this was a calculated political decision rather than one made in the interest of justice. Opposition parties have also reacted strongly. The MK party claims the appointment was intended to shield Momia from imminent arrest and prosecution, and has called on Motibi to act decisively without delay. Similarly, the economic freedom fighters have urged Motibi to prosecute cases without fear, favor, or political consideration, regardless of who is involved. Despite the growing backlash, President Ramaphosa defended his decision, stating that he exercised his constitutional powers only after being informed by the advisory panel that none of the interviewed candidates were suitable for the position.
This process of having a very transparent and open manner in which a public official like the head of the NPA should be appointed. The last time when Shamila Batoyi was appointed, I opened up a process which many people welcomed. It's not in the law. The law says the president can appoint whomever he wants. But I felt that because of the importance of the position, we should open it up so that the public can see and have an insight in the type of person that we want in that position. So the second time round, to replace Shamila Batoyi, who is retiring, I did the same thing. And there were 18 or so applications, and the advisory panel informs me that none of those that were shortlisted really could be appointed as the head of the NPA. So in the end, because of the shortness of the time, I then relied on what the Constitution empowers me as president to do. And it is for that reason that I decided to appoint Motibi. Now, I've appointed a known figure, a person who is in the criminal justice system, who has distinguished himself and who has demonstrated his ability. And I'm hoping that everybody will accept this for what it is. And of course, in future, we would want even the law or the Constitution to be amended to allow a more open process. We don't have it now, and it was instituted at my volition. And when it didn't yield the results that I expected, I had to rely on what the Constitution.
Meanwhile, the outgoing National Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Shamila Batoyi, welcomed the appointment of her successor in a public statement. She said the appointment comes at a critical moment as the National Prosecuting Authority continues its journey of rebuilding and strengthening institutional integrity. It is also worth noting that Motibi's leadership at the Special Investigating Unit has been described by some as transformative. He has been credited with turning the SIU into a highly effective anti-corruption body. Under his leadership, the unit conducted major investigations into state capture at entities such as Transnet, Eskom, and Prasa, resulting in significant financial recoveries. By the end of the 2023 to 2024 financial year, the SIU had recovered approximately 710 million rand from Transnet and successfully froze more than 4 billion rand linked to a locomotive supplier. At Eskom, the unit secured recoveries exceeding 1.5 billion rand and invalidated contracts worth an estimated 10 billion rand. Despite these achievements, the shadow of the Tembisa Hospital scandal looms, far larger than Motibi's past successes. The concern remains that a man who was once the hunter at the SIU is now being placed in a position where he controls the final fate of the prey. The SIU can investigate, but only the NPA has the power to prosecute. By moving the individual who knows the most about the investigation into the position that decides whether prosecutions proceed, the president has created a scenario that can be interpreted in two ways. Either he wants the most knowledgeable person to finish the job, or he has placed the only man who knows where the bodies are buried in a position to keep them hidden. The details of the Tembisa Hospital scandal reveal a level of greed that is difficult to comprehend. An SIU report released last year revealed that executives at Prasa also awarded irregular contracts worth nearly 3 billion rand. However, it is the looting of the healthcare sector that has struck the deepest nerve. The funds allegedly stolen by syndicates linked to Momia were meant for the sick and vulnerable. The shelf companies used in the scheme provided no real value to the hospital, while draining it of critical resources. The sheer scale of wealth accumulated through the alleged looting is best illustrated by Momia's taste for extreme luxury. According to investigative reports, he paid 52 million rand for a Pagani Huayra Roadster, a hand-built Italian hypercar, of which only 100 exist worldwide. Every component of the vehicle bears the manufacturer's mark, reflecting a level of exclusivity reserved for the ultra-wealthy. This purchase reportedly occurred in late 2021, just months after the Gauteng Department of Health whistleblower Babita Dio Karen had flagged shell companies linked to the syndicate. While she was raising alarms about suspicious transactions at Tembisa Hospital, Momia was allegedly shopping for a car costing more than most people earn in several lifetimes. Following Dio Karen's assassination, her recommendations for a forensic audit into the hospital's procurement office were allegedly buried, effectively dying with her as the spending spree continued. The Pagani Huayra itself is a marvel of engineering, powered by a twin-turbocharged AMG V12 engine, producing more than 760 horsepower. It accelerates from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in roughly 3 seconds and reaches a top speed of 370 kilometers per hour. Every carbon fiber panel is hand-laid and finished by master craftsmen. Investigators allege that Momia paid more than 52 million rand to a luxury dealership for the vehicle and later incurred additional costs to alter its specifications in Italy. Although the purchase was eventually reversed and refunded, the Pagani was only the crown jewel in a fleet of more than 30 supercars now being pursued by the SIU. In addition to the vehicles, Momia's property portfolio has also been preserved. Investigators estimate the value of his mansions in Sandton, Bantry Bay, Camps Bay, and Zimbali at more than 200 million rand. A raid on his Sandton home reportedly revealed a 3-story mansion filled with luxury furnishings and hotel-style interiors, allegedly funded with money extracted from Tembisa Hospital. The controversy surrounding Motibi's appointment is further deepened by the rejection of several highly experienced candidates. The advisory panel interviewed 6 senior legal figures, many of whom were widely regarded as capable of leading the NPA. Yet the president claimed none were suitable, reinforcing claims that the outcome was predetermined. President Ramaphosa has attempted to distance himself from his nephew, stating publicly that he does not consider himself related to him and that he barely knows him. However, shifting explanations and conflicting statements from his office have done little to silence speculation of a deeper connection. Opposition parties, particularly the Democratic Alliance, have accused the president of protecting his nephew and limiting the scope of investigations. They argue that evidence pointing to broader criminal activity was ignored, suggesting a deliberate containment strategy. Critics have also questioned the appointment process itself, describing it as rushed, poorly planned, and lacking transparency. While acknowledging Motibi's competence and past performance, some analysts argue that his age and limited remaining tenure make him an unsuitable choice for the long-term reform the NPA desperately needs. Motibi now assumes office at a time when the NPA faces severe backlogs in prosecuting high-profile state capture cases. A presidential report revealed that more than half of the criminal referrals from the Zondo Commission remain unresolved, with many cases not even initiated. His record at the SIU suggests he is capable of driving progress, but the central question remains unresolved. Will his pursuit of justice extend to the president's inner circle now that he serves at the president's discretion? The SIU can investigate and recover money through civil action, but only the NPA has the authority to send people to prison. By controlling who occupies that office, the president holds immense power. The official narrative is that of a corruption-fighting hero being promoted. The counter-narrative is that of a family member being protected by a hand-picked appointee. The luxury cars, the mansions, and the billions allegedly stolen from a public hospital are facts that demand accountability. Whether Andy Motibi becomes the sword of justice or the shield of the powerful is a question that will be answered in the months ahead.
Example, one of your own nephews, whose company scored contracts worth 381 million rand from Gauteng hospitals. And you write that it's not being felt by the majority of our citizens because BE only benefits ANC-connected cronies.
No, you keep saying my nephew. I don't even know this gentleman. And so let's not even get there. I don't know him.
There was no rigorous process in this appointment process. There was a rigorous appointment process for Advocate Betoy, a very laudable process. This one was a mess from the beginning. The panel was inadequate, had inadequate depth, had inadequate skill sets, set up a shortlist that was doomed to fail, then quite predictably found that no one was appointable, and then the president went ahead and exercised his somewhat dubious constitutional prerogative to appoint whomsoever he chose, and he chose Andy Motibi. So the process itself is a complete mess, and is somewhat concerning. It shows a lack of a proper forethought. It shows a disregard for the importance of the very important position of National Director. Everybody knew that Advocate Betoy was going to retire this year in January, and it's her birthday today, so happy birthday to her. And the president chose in the middle of December of last year to start doing something about this, despite having been asked numerous times over many, many months prior to start the process. So it was a rush job and it was a botched job, and that was entirely predictable.
So, I hear you. I hear you. Let's talk about his experience. And so, from your perspective, do you think he is the man for the job?
Well, no, I don't. I think that Mr. Motibi has done an excellent job at the SIU. Really a very good job. Most commendable. He has experience in prosecuting. He has experience as a magistrate. So he has the required skills, and I'm very comfortable with that. My difficulty is with his age. He's not a young man. He's 62 or 63. He's going to have to retire in 2 or 3 years. So I see, again, what the National Prosecuting Authority needs is a long-term hand to steer it, to implement proper policies of reform, and to get it back on an even keel. And 2 to 3 years is certainly not enough in which to do that. And so the effect that Mr. Motibi can have, no matter how hard he tries, is going to be very limited, and one must be very concerned about the thought process that went into appointing him at this stage of his.
Thanks for watching.